Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you an introduction to the post method in Express.js. Express.js is a framework for working with Node that makes it easier to build web applications. It can also be used to build application programming interfaces or APIs, which act as intermediaries between applications. This video is part of a boot camp I'm doing where I'm learning to code, so I invite you to learn along with me. Let's get started. So, in order to use the post method, we first have to build an Express application. And I'm going to build a really simple application. I like cats, so I'm going to make an application that gives us a list of well-known fictional cats. So I cheated a bit and I actually already have a file prepared called cats.js, which contains an array of 3 iconic fictional cats. So we have Puss in Boots, the Cheshire Cat, and Garfield. And you can see that each cat has an ID, an origin that describes what story the fictional cat is from, and a defining trait that makes that cat unique. Okay, cool. Now in order to display these cats, we have to use our Express application. First, let's make sure that we can use our fictional cats array in our main file, which means we're going to have to export it. So module.exports equals fictional cats. Great. Now we should be able to use our fictional cats array anywhere we import it. So now that's ready, let's start setting up our Express application. I made a file called catapp.js, and in this file the first thing I'm going to do is import Express. So let's create a constant called Express and set it equal to require Express. Now let's create a constant called app, and in this constant we're going to call the Express function. Now let's set up a port for us to listen on. Let's say port 3000. So constant port equals 3000. And finally, let's import our cats. So let's make a constant called fictional cats and set it equal to require and then ./C cats, since that's what I called my cats file. Okay, now we're ready to start building our app. Let's start by console logging that we're listening on port 3000. So app.listen, and in this function, we're going to pass in the port we're listening on, which is contained in the variable port, and then a callback function, which I'm going to write as an arrow function. So empty parentheses, then our fat little arrow, then console.log, and I'm going to use backticks, and then I'm going to write listening on port, $, curly braces, and then our port variable. Okay, now let's run our application. So in the terminal, let's write node and then catapp. And it says listening on port 3000, so it worked. Great. Next, let's set up the home page of our application. So we're going to tell our application what to retrieve and display when we send a GET request. So we have to write app.get, and then we pass in the path where we want our GET requests to be routed, which in this case is just the root path, so /. And then we write in our callback function that we want it to execute, which takes 2 parameters, request and response, or rec and res. And again, I'm going to write it as an arrow function. And inside this arrow function, we have to tell it what to do, what we want to see on our home page, basically. So I'm going to type res.send, which is going to send a response to the GET request. And in the parentheses, we pass in what we want our application to display, or what we want the response to be. I'm going to put it in backticks, and then I'm basically going to display the information about our cats with a little HTML to make it more readable. So I'm going to start with an H1 that says fictional cats. And then for each cat, I'm going to display its name, and I'm going to put that in H4 tags. So H4, perfect. And since we're using a template string, I can use the $ curly braces to enclose a variable. So I'm going to write fictional cats and then square bracket 0 dot name. So this will give me the first cat's name since it's part of an array. And then after the h4, I'm going to write from $ curly braces fictional cats 0 dot origin and then semicolon known for $ curly braces fictional cats 0 dot defining trait. Okay, cool. Now I'm just going to copy this, paste it twice, and replace the 0 with a 1, and then with a 2. Now let's run our application again. Node cat app, and let's check out localhost 3000 in our browser. And we have our fictional cats. Puss in Boots from Fairy Tales, known for his boots, the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, known for grinning, and Garfield from the Garfield comic strip, known for loving lasagna. Awesome. But what if we wanted to add a cat to our application? Well, we could always change our cats.js, but what if we don't want to do that every time we want to add another cat? That's where our post method comes in. The post method will allow us to send new data to the server via a post request. Now, in order to be able to send post requests, there's a couple things we need to do. First, we have to install a body parser, and a body parser will basically parse our request and turn it into a format that Express can deal with. Okay, so we type npm I, short for install, body-parser --save. And it's going to install. Okay, now in order to use our body parser, we first have to import it. So let's make a constant called body parser and set it equal to require body parser. Then we type app.use and then our body parser variable .json, and don't forget to set the parentheses after JSON. And then app.use body parser.url encoded, and then in our parentheses, we're going to add a set of curly braces and we're going to write extended : false. Okay, so we've got our body parser set up. Now the other thing we're going to need is an HTTP client that will allow us to send HTTP requests. I'm going to be using Postman for the purposes of this video. So let's open up Postman and open up a new tab and set our request type to post. Okay, now back in our catapp.js, let's write our code for the post method. So app.post, and then we're going to pass in our path. Now we could just put in the path to our home page again, but I'm going to make a really simple little API instead. So /API. Then we've got our callback function, which takes request and response just like app.get did, and then our fat little arrow. And in our callback function, we're going to do a couple things. First, we're going to make a template for a new cat that we can use to post new cats into our array. So we're going to set a constant new cat equal to an object. And in this object, we're going to have the same properties as our other cats. So ID, name, origin, and defining trait. Now, we could just hard code in our properties right now, but that would mean we could only add one specific new cat with our method. So instead, let's set it up so that we can continuously add whatever kinds of new cats we want. So in order to do that, we set each of our properties equal to the property that we pass into the body of our request, which we type as rec.body. The property name, which is either ID, name, origin, or defining trait. All right, now that we've set up our new cat, we're going to add it to our array. So, fictional cats dot push new cat. And then finally, we want to see our array of cats. So let's do res.json fictional cats, which will take our fictional cats array, convert it to a JSON string, and send it as a response to our request. Great. Now the final thing we need to do in our catapp.js is make sure that our new cat appears on our home page. Now ideally we'd set it up so that all our cats in our array would automatically appear and have the proper HTML applied to them, but that's beyond the scope of this video. So for now, we're just going to hard code in our fourth cat by copying one of our other cats, which actually I think should still be on our clipboard. And yes, it is. And we're going to change the number to 3, which will give us our fourth cat. Now, of course, if we were to run our application without posting our new cat to our API, this would return an error, because currently our fourth cat doesn't exist. Let me show you. Node cat app, and let's go to localhost 3000, and there we have our error. Okay, so let's try running our application again, but this time we'll post our request to our API. So node cat app, and let's open up Postman. And for our request URL, we're going to put in the path we passed into our post method, which was the URL of our API. So that would be http localhost 3000/API. And then in our headers, we're going to add a key that says content type. And the value of that key is going to be application/JSON. And what this does is it basically tells the server the type of data we're sending in the body of our request. Then in our body, we're going to change it to raw. And then we're going to input our new cat as a JSON object. And I think the new cat we're going to add is the cat in the hat. So curly braces, ID, for name, cat in the hat, origin, Dr. Seuss, and his defining trait is, of course, his hat. Cool. Now let's send the request. And as you can see, we got back our array of cats, including our new cat, the cat in the hat, as our response. Now let's head back over to localhost 3000, refresh the page, and as you can see, we now have all 4 cats. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you can see how the post method allows us to create and send new data to the server and route post requests to a specific path. If you liked this video, or even if you just like cats, please leave a thumbs up and a comment down below. Hit that subscribe button if you're so inclined, and I'll see you next time.